Hey there. So it looks like we're live. How are you all? Good to see you. Glad to be here. I wanted to jump on here. For a lot of people, it's lunchtime, so maybe you have a chance to check in. You can see the topic. I had really had someone who brought up this question related to the board versus the staff. Hey there, drop any comments in the comment section. Let us know that you're here. Let me know any questions. But we're calling this "Stay in Your Lane." Clearing up board and staff confusion in churches and nonprofits. This happens often as we are moving in toward the end of the year and planning for the upcoming year. I thought it would be really important to hop into this discussion. Welcome. Good to see you all here. Again, just drop in the comments. Let us know that you're here. Happy to be able to have this discussion. So going right into the discussion. So today I'm going to really break this down in a way that's clear and immediately actionable. So let me just quickly say why this topic is so important. The truth is, churches and nonprofits lose a lot of momentum when they make mistakes about overlapping roles, right? Also, staff can feel micromanaged when boards step into daily operations. And also, boards, they feel sidelined when staff is making the decisions that really belong at the governance level. And ultimately, the mission suffers. And that also means that the nonprofit, the church, the organization is not really able to get the funding, have the momentum that it needs to operate well. So this is a big issue, and I want to make sure that we get into it. So clarity, as we're talking about it today, it's not just a best practice. It really is protection, right? Protection for the organization, protection for the leaders, protection for the mission, and ultimately the protection for the money, right? For the organization, because that's really what you need to be able to function well. So we can't overlook that. All right. So I got, as in any pastor would appreciate, I got 3 points, right? A good 3 point message that I want to make sure I cover. So point number one, the distinction. So let's just start with the biggest distinction. Boards govern, staff manage. Boards govern, staff manage. The problem sometimes can really occur when we're dealing with smaller churches or smaller nonprofits, right? Where it's kind of like all hands on deck, where the expectation is that really you get folks, whoever is available, whoever can sort of lend their hands, lend their talent. But that can be tricky and problematic. We don't want to run into the area where hope I didn't lose you. We don't want to run into the area where people are not understanding what their role is. So the term governance, just to add some context, comes from the reference of steering a ship. So the board is to aim that ship, right? To give it direction. Are we going this way? Or are we going that way? Really sort of aiming, directing the organization in the proper way, but not to be in the day-to-day operations. So what does governance look like? It is setting the mission, the vision, the core values, right? Its job would be to approve necessary policies. You know that if you're a part of Faithful Foundation's membership, hi, David Smith, good to see you. David's in the membership, then you know that we are all for the second year people in the membership, we are focusing on policies and procedures, right? So when you get those policies and procedures in place, it really is the board that needs to approve those and make sure that those policies are actioned, right? The board is into the governance areas like providing financial and legal oversight. I love that a big part of the work that I do in serving nonprofits and churches is I provide that legal insight that's needed, right? That comes from the board level. Also, evaluating the executive director or the senior pastor. That is something that is a board duty. And ultimately ensuring accountability and alignment, right? All that's on the board level. Also, what does management look like? So conversely, right? So this is more staff work. Running the day-to-day operations. The board should not be involved in day-to-day operations. That's staff. supervising staff and volunteers, managing programs, budgets, and events, and implementing the strategies that the board has approved. That again is on the staff level. So a way that we want to remember this is the board decides what and why. On the other hand, the staff handles the how, right? So they're really the implementation part. When those wires get crossed, that's when you can see frustration, people getting into conflict, stalled progress, right? So we want to avoid that. So again, the board equals governance. They set the mission, the vision, the strategic direction. They approve policies, ensure legal and financial oversight. They're the ones who hold the organization accountable. On the other hand, the staff is focused on management. So they're executing the day-to-day mission, they're implementing programs, they're managing operations and carrying out the board's approved plans. So again, the key distinction, boards decide what and why, the staff determines the how, right? They're focused on the implementation. So that's point one. Point two, oversight versus operations. So oversight is not the same as operations. A board provides oversight. Oversight is high level. So oversight is the strategic level work. Oversight protects the mission. Let's just kind of outline what oversight does not look like. So oversight is not reviewing staff schedules, deciding which volunteers work where, handling marketing, dictating programming details, approving everyday purchases, or managing the staff directly. No, that's not oversight, that's operations. And again, that's in the staff's realm. When the board steps into operations, it can bottleneck the effectiveness, right? It can hold up the effectiveness of the organization. And not because they're trying to be difficult, but because they're stepping into work that they weren't designed to do. On the flip side, when the staff take on oversight, making major decisions without board involvement, that creates risk, especially legal and financial risk. I was reviewing something earlier today, which really made me decide to go ahead and share this insight because I'd gotten repeated questions where the organization was relatively young organization and really had talent on every level, but there was not clarity on how to move forward, and this distinction between what's the job of the board, what's the job of the staff, and the leadership. And I was a part of the meetings with the leadership as their legal counsel, and people were feeling lots of frustration, which is why I was called in. So I was looking through just how these operations were and able to help decipher and help them sort of provide some guidance as to how we can manage this. And really, as we come to the end of the year, this is an ideal time to do this work, to do this strategy work. So the third and final point I want to mention is that nonprofit boards only have one person for which their oversight is expected. They are not supervising, obviously, the workers in the organization, but they do have the responsibility. Nonprofits have the responsibility to provide oversight to the executive director. So if you're operating a nonprofit, the executive director role, right, making sure that that position is operating accordingly is the job of the board, but not other staff members. Likewise, in the church, there's that the oversight and insight related to that senior pastor role is critical. So again, boards don't supervise the staff. They don't give direct instruction to ministry leaders or program directors or administrative staff. Why is this important? Because when staff receive instructions from multiple places, they just can't succeed. It's pretty impossible. It creates mixed messaging, confusion, and it leads to conflict, which is what this organization was experiencing. On the other hand, as we're able to work through these areas and I'm able to provide this clarity, it really is wonderful because then people feel like they're not carrying these heavy loads that they perhaps were carrying before. They really are able to excel in the areas that they are meant to function in. So this structure creates the clarity, the consistency, and ultimately the unity. You know that in the word, the Bible talks about where there's unity, there's strength, right? So you're really strengthening your organization when you create unity and clarity in this way. It also protects staff from being pulled into so many different directions that they can't be effective. And it protects the board from overreach. So if your nonprofit or church is struggling with blurred roles or confusion or power struggles, like this is a great moment to pause and to realign. That's one of the beautiful things I think about coming to the end of the year. We're doing a wonderful, I'm looking forward to it, an end of the year legal and tax matters next week. So we've had to close registration because we've already maxed out, but get on my newsletter at eurekacole.com if you weren't able to register. And we do plan to share information about the end of the year details. We also are providing an amazing downloadable document that everybody who's registered for the end of the year webinar will receive. So this is a great time to really look at your structures and how you're operating and try to align things in this way, like really following these 3 points. So let me just cover them real quickly again. So point 1, governance versus management, making sure that you follow this reality that it's the job of the board to govern and it's the job of the staff to manage. Point 2 was oversight versus operations, recognizing that they are not the same. The board provides oversight, right? Oversight is high level, it's strategic. But operations, the internal day-to-day, that belongs to the staff. And then the third point that we mentioned was that nonprofit boards don't oversee the staff. They only have oversight related to the executive director. In the church realm, that would be the senior pastor. So it's really helpful to make sure that we aren't crossing those boundaries. And hi, Elaine, good morning. David asked, will the end of the year webinar be recorded for those of us who failed to register in time? It will be recorded. And David, if you're in the all access for Faithful Foundations, you will get that in your portal. So you'll have that there. So I hope that this was helpful. I know that this is an issue that lots of nonprofits and churches face, but we wanted to make sure that we cleared up the confusion. And yeah, awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to be able to share this with you. And I'll make sure that we also talk a little bit as we get more towards the end of the year about some of those other important details that I hope that you are addressing as we are getting toward the end of the year. And I look forward to talking with you more then. All right. God bless. Bye.